Okay, this is our last video of the next lesson, 21C competencies. Um, and this is purposely left to the end. And when you do this presentation, it's purposely left to the end. And this is the use of ICT, or information and communication technology. It's purposely left for the end for two reasons. One is to say that you could do 21C without technology at all. So you could really be doing 21C learning. You could be doing sort of that next lesson without using technology. And as you work through, we worked through the first 5 competencies, you could get examples of how you're really thinking about a 21st century learner without technology. Now, that being said, it would be sort of, if you have the availability of technology, it would be almost negligent to not use it or to not figure it out, because there is a skill in and of itself to use ICT. Again, why is it left to the end? Well, because the use of technology is not in and of it for itself. It is going to be used to support one of the other 5 competencies. Now, that being said, I do think there's value to using technology because it's a skill in and of itself. Students are going to need to know how to use certain technologies. I mean, there's that idea that if you don't know, I've said it before, if you don't know what a hashtag or a Twitter handle is, then you're becoming illiterate. And definitely the next generation will be illiterate if they don't know how to communicate and manipulate and access the resources that are available through social media or through technology. It's not like our generation. They're going to really need to do that. So there is value in that. But really, if you're going to be doing it properly, you're going to use ICT to support the lesson. So what happens, the big idea for this one is students' use of ICT happens when students use it directly to complete all or part of their learning activity. So let's take a look at what that means exactly here. We're going to just click on it, move forward. So we're starting with our spectrum of comfort again. And the entry level, ask yourself that question. Do students have the opportunity to use ICT? Really your entry, and there's nothing necessarily wrong with that. Like I said, you could be doing 21C without using technology at all. But do they have the opportunity to use it? If yes, then if no, you're at entry, and that's fine. But if yes, then you move down. And does the use of ICT support students' knowledge construction? So it's not just that they're using it. So if you're going to use technology for them to type out essays, if you're going to use technology for them to, they make PowerPoints, you're really at the entry level, and maybe at adoption level. Like you're at the adoption level. They're using it, but you're substituting it for what you would have done anyway. So if you're taking your lessons and putting them on PowerPoint, you're really barely at the adoption level, because really what you're doing is you're just substituting. You're using technology, and then it might make things easier, it might make things more engaging, but it really hasn't changed anything yet. You haven't changed what you're doing. You're still doing the same thing. And if students are simply using it to present or to organize what they would have done before, you're not. It's some of the value is there, but you're not adapting. And that adaptation, like I said before, adaptation is really the key level. That's where you start to change what you're doing. And I would argue that we need to change what we're doing for an entirely different generation, an entirely different skill set. So then you move down. So does it require? So then it's used for that. And then is ICT required for constructing knowledge? And this is where you move past the adaptation level and then into infusion. Why? Because what you're saying there, and what this is, if you want to word it differently, you're saying, are they doing something with ICT that they wouldn't have done, that they couldn't have done nearly as well, nearly as easily, or they couldn't have done at all? So an example there would be, in their constructing knowledge, they are interviewing experts from the other side of the world using Skype. That's not something they ever could have done. They really could not have done that with without the use of technology, without the use of, let's say, social media, those sorts of things. So right there, you would be at the infusion level for sure, because it's required. You can't get around it. You have to. And then at the end, and this is where I think really the key is, because what you're doing, and this is why it's so good to progress here, even though it seems like a simple thing, but do the students create an ICT artifact for others to use? There's a double-edged sword there. So create, what a great word. And it should be capitalized. If I was to create these slides again, I would capitalize create. Creating is what changes with ICT, because students should no longer be consumers of knowledge. They should no longer be simply consuming information or media or creation, they should be making it. They should be producers of it. And that allows you to do that. I mean, really, if you look at even something as relatively simple as the iPad, you have video and still cameras available on it for them to make videos. You have apps that you can edit videos and create multimedia presentations and multimedia artifacts. You have the ability, because of the connection apps, you can consult with people from all over the world. You can then, because of the internet connections and because of some of the other apps, you can create blogs to share this across the world. And I mean quite literally instantly share it with everyone across the world. And so that's something that literally sits in the palm of your hand. 10 years ago, that would have meant that would have required a very extensive and very expensive media lab, and now that media lab is in the palm of their hands and costs just over $300 and is very, very doable. So the idea to create, and then for others to use. Don't just finish that sentence by saying, do the students create an ICT artifact? No, 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 for others to use. So it has to be published. It has to be put out there. It has to be there for others to consume. It has to be a shared idea. And this is what ICT allows you to do. Remember, take a look at what you could not have ever done. They could have created a piece of artwork before. They could have created a great resource before. And if they handed it in to their teacher, it was done. Now it's the idea of what can you do with it. And like I said, instantly, literally instantly, they can take whatever it is they do and share it with everyone on the planet if they want to. What an amazing amount of ability, but what also an amazing responsibility that comes with that. And so there's real lessons that need to be there. So the use of ICT isn't just a supportive mechanism like we had talked about before. It is going to be used in conjunction with the others, but the use of ICT is an important skill and a responsibility. There is great power that comes with some of this technology, and if it's not wielded properly, it can do some serious damage. And so you need to be able to say, how am I doing it? What am I doing with it? How am I going to progress? And there it is. Again, just to reiterate, we're not talking about, when you're looking at your lessons, I'm going to go for transformation in all 6 competencies. If you try to do that, your lesson would be a disaster. It would be a mess. It would be an impossibility. So you're really, what the idea of the next lesson is to say, being overt, being obvious, and being explicit. I am wanting to touch base. This is what I want to focus on. I want to focus on self-regulation. I want to focus on collaboration, whatever it is, and then say, okay, what am I going to do? And then you go to the spectrum of comfort. Then you go to these charts. Then you go to these examples, and you say, what can I do? One thing better, or one thing differently. Better is an improper word. Differently. How can I adapt? How can I change those things and move through the spectrum? I hope this has been helpful. I hope this has been at least interesting. And I hope that it spurns some more conversation for things we can do moving forward. Thanks, folks.